Thanks so much for listening to No Lions Here with me, Big Panda. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Lions Here. My name is Big Panda, and I'm a recovering sex addict. Before we jump into today's episode, I just want to give a shout out to my sponsors for the show, Beginning in Institute. If you or anyone you know is struggling with sex, love, or porn addiction, definitely go check them out. The work that they are doing is crucial, I believe, in today's day and age, and a big part of my story and what helped me get that running start into my own recovery. Their information will be in the description below, so definitely go and check them out. I highly recommend it. Again, I can't speak highly enough of the work that they're doing in this field. So definitely go and check them out, and a big shout out to them for what they do. Good to be back in the studio doing this episode today. It's a interesting episode for me to do because I want to talk about getting my chip in the year chip for my year abstinent from inner circle behaviors, right? I haven't acted out in over a year. At this point in time, my year was like, it was in May, and now we're literally to the end of June. And so I wanted to come on, and I've been kind of dodging this topic, not in the sense of like that I'm lying about my day count or anything like that. It's just like, I don't know. It's something that I'm struggling to be proud of. I'm struggling to acknowledge like the weight of it all. And so I'm going to kind of dive into that today. Cause again, like I've been wanting to do this episode, but I've had people coming on, and again, it's also too like the idea of like patting myself on the back. And so like it's uncomfortable. There's some shame there too, probably around, it's taken me 4 years to get to a year. In my other programs or my other areas of sobriety, those have been pretty consistent for me. Over 3.5 years clean and sober from cocaine and alcohol. Now those I was pretty, those were more manageable to put down at the beginning than the sexual behaviors. And as you guys know, if you guys have been listening to the show, I was a chronic relapser in my sexual sobriety. For the longest time, I couldn't string together, more than 2 weeks, let alone 30 days. I think the most time I had before this was like 4 months. It was like 120 days. But even then, it was like a lot of white knuckling. I really wasn't. I wasn't okay with being sober. I wasn't okay with being clean from my behaviors. And I used being single for a lot of my recovery so far up until this point. I used being single as kind of like not an out or a justification. However, like it was part of it though, right? Like it was like, man, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not cheating on anybody. It's really hard to be single in recovery for sexual addiction. Because again, a lot of my behaviors were behaviors where, I betrayed my partners, my past partners, and so I get into the program and I really wanted to stay away. I didn't want to keep acting out, right? Because you get into recovery and it's like the mystery and the excitement behind the why I'm doing these things is kind of taken away a little bit. And when the mystery's gone, it's kind of like, I see why I'm doing this. And I was so fed up and so sick of acting out because it was the same things over and over, right? It was putting myself in these situations that I thought were going to relieve me of the anxiety, the pain that I was feeling. And in the moment, you kind of get lost in that, and for me, it wasn't even finally like, it wasn't the act of, doing these things, right? It was the things that were leading up to it, right? Getting lost in the hunt for sex and love, the hunt for trying to find somebody that fits the fantasy in my head to go act out with. So it was so much more for me than the act itself, right? It's the build up to it. The way the body gets excited. It's almost by the time we got to the act, it was pretty much already over and done with for me. But yeah, again, just now that I've been removed from these, I'm really grateful. I'm really, really grateful for my sobriety. It feels really good, honestly. Like I wasn't sure if I was ever going to make it to the time where I said, oh yeah, I've got over a year clean from my inner circle bottom line behaviors. And there's also this piece to it around, I have a really hard time of giving myself credit when credit's due. Sometimes I feel like the things that I accomplish, I'm obligated to accomplish them. I'm obligated to do these things, right? I'm obligated to stay sober. I'm working a program, so I need to stay sober. Well, I'm working a program and I'm not staying sober. I had someone tell me some one time, I talked about, and they're like, oh, well, you weren't really working a program. And it was like, well, I was working the program to the best of my ability. It's just the best of my ability, whether the awareness wasn't there or what. But I can honestly say that I've worked the program to the best of my ability. I use the tools and sometimes even using those tools. And I think that timing has to do with that as well. Am I using my tools when it's too late? That we don't want to use, I want to use the tools as soon as kind of these red flag things pop up. I don't want to wait until I'm on my way to go and act out before I use the tools, right? I want to get used to using the tools before I have to rely on the tools to try to pull me out of something. Because if I'm waiting until the last second and trying to rely on these tools, they're not going to add up to the quote unquote excitement that I've kind of already put myself in, right? By downloading the apps, right? By starting the conversations. And so there are plenty of times like that where I tried to use the tools, last second, I've used, I've gotten the excitement. I've downloaded the app. I've put myself out there, right? There's been pictures, there's been talk, right? Things are flowing. And that's when I've tried to use my tools. Whereas in the last year, I think that it got to a point where I was just so fed up with acting out. I had gotten to the point where I was just so over it. I was just so done with it. Every time I acted out, there was a little bit more degree of that desperation. Just finally getting to the point where it was just I don't want to keep doing this anymore. And, it was the idea of beginning to date, which really, really helped me kind of check those behaviors as well. Not only was it this, I'm just so fed up with acting out. I'm so sick of going down this same dead end path. And I had to have an experience with that. I had to continuously go down that path and I had to continuously hit that wall for me to recognize. Now, I'm not saying that, I use that to justify my behaviors. However, that was the best that I could do at that point in time. And so it took me, running into this wall countless times. I've acted out more times than I like to admit over the last 4 years. And, thank God that this last year, I haven't had to rely on those, right? I've been, using the tools sooner, right? And we're not getting to that point of, all right, I'm already got 1 foot in, so I'm just going to go ahead and follow through with this. Cause that was a lot of the times for me was, well, I've got 1 foot in. And so I might as well just follow through with this. Whereas this time I'm not putting my foot into it, and dating did definitely help that kind of gave me a little bit of a backstop, because one of the things that I knew that I didn't want to do. And this was the other thing too, was I don't want to bring these behaviors into a new relationship. I didn't want to do that at all. Because I had seen where the hurt that these behaviors have caused, other people, my old partners. And so I really didn't want to bring that into a new relationship. That added another fold to it. Also too, I had kind of, justified or made excuses to act out by saying, well, I'm single and I'm not ready to be in a relationship yet. So I'm just going to justify the behaviors, right? The acting out. Well, I'm not even close to dating anybody. So I'm really not ready for that. So you know what's really stopping me from acting out? And not that It's nobody else's job to keep me sober. That's my job. It's not my sponsor's job. It's not the program's job. It's my job to continuously seek sobriety and to stay in that spot. And I know that, like, getting into a new relationship would help that. And what I'm seeing on the other side of it is now being in a relationship for almost a year, the healthy sex that we have within the relationship, doesn't guarantee my sobriety either. Right. Just because, I'm not celibate, I'm not abstinent within my relationship, doesn't mean that the urges, or just because I'm having sex doesn't mean that the urges are going to go away. It hasn't necessarily been the opposite, right? It hasn't like ramped it up, but I mean, those thoughts are still there. The thoughts, the urges, man, like they're still there. I've been kind of dealing with them the last couple of days, just seeing those. And like, there's times where like the brain, I want to go back to those times, because again, I fantasize, I romanticize about those times, just like I do with the drugs and the alcohol. I think, oh man, like those were good times, when in reality, like they were not good times at all. They were not. I was putting myself in harm's way. I was putting other people in harm's way. It was withdrawing from me spiritually, mentally, and emotionally, as well as financially at certain points in time as well. And so like I knew that I didn't want to bring these in. So like dating definitely helped. I think when I met my partner, I was like 2 or 3 months, I think 2 months sober from the inner circle. But the fact of the matter is, I'm really proud that I haven't brought those behaviors into this relationship. And then that's something that I don't want to do. And again, I don't want to hurt this person. I don't want to hurt her. I don't want to hurt her kid. Like I don't want to do those things, right? Do the thoughts still pop up? Do the urges still pop up? Absolutely, right? It's a testament to just kind of how uncomfortable I am in some of the things that I'm dealing with today. There's a reason why I see it. I know where the thoughts are coming from. I'm still full of fear. Talking about the sobriety and getting a year, like, man, I should be, I say this, I should be, right? We got to be careful with that. Like, I feel like I should be overjoyed and, screaming from the mountaintops. And, I'm well aware that no matter how much time away from the behaviors, from the drugs, from the alcohol that we are, I'm still the same distance away from the ditch that I always have been. All it takes is one false turn, one slip of the hand, and to steer the car. And, I'm right back in that ditch again. So like, I'm very aware that, and I don't know if it's fear, definitely fear that held me back from like doing this episode and talking about, the year that I have clean. I mean, this is the first time in my life that I've gone this long without some kind of self-medicating with porn or anonymous hookups. This is the first time in my life that, I'm not relying on those things. And even when the urges pop up, and that used to be really difficult for me, was with the urges, with being in recovery for sexual addiction, the urges can oftentimes cause arousal, physical arousal in the body. And oftentimes for me in the past, what that's looked like is, oh, okay, well, I mean, this is here, so I might as well do something about it, because, the idea that like, it's not just going to go away on its own, right? Like I have to do something about it. Now, for instance, I know that is a lie, right? I know that like in those moments, I don't have to obey what the body is telling me to do, right? In those moments, the body is telling me, hey, Alex, we're ready. Let's go. And, in my mind, I can kind of reflect on that and give it up to God and in my higher power, and, ask that these things be removed from me in those moments, so that I can get some kind of reprieve from them. Again, and it's not lost on me kind of what's going on in my life that's causing these things to come up, right? I feel like I'm in this moment of wait right now. I've been talking about it, looking at moving in with the girlfriend, which means a physical move for me. And so like, there's been some actions that I've taken around that, as far as kind of like putting myself out there, seeing what other opportunities career-wise there are for me. And I've taken a couple actions on those. And so like, I'm really proud of the actions I've taken, because I remember back in early recovery, being in these things and being like so overwhelmed with like I don't know what the next move is, right? They talk about all the time, right? Like, just do the next right thing, right? Just do the next right thing, and then do the next right thing, and then do the next right thing. And early on in recovery, you don't really have this clear map of like what the next right thing is. And so oftentimes I would get stuck in this, like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what the right action is. I don't even know what the next move is. I wish somebody or something would just tell me what to do next, right? And I remember like calling my sponsor so many times and being like wanting him to give me an answer, when in reality, like, he didn't give me an answer, and that's not necessarily his job. Now, if I would have asked him straight up, like, hey man, so yes or no, kind of like when I was talking with Ricky about doing, he wanted to ask this person out, and I gave him this whole description, and I was like, hey man, you know what, and at the end of the day, I know you're going to go about the right way, and God's involved, and Ricky, if we let fear take over, we wouldn't do anything. And then at the end of that spiel, he was like, so yes or no? And, there could have been times where I took that to my sponsor. But again, he wouldn't give me those yes or no's. But again, I was looking for somebody else to make the decisions for me, instead of saying, no, I'm an adult. I'm the one that needs to make these decisions. So I'm going to make those decisions, and I'm going to take some actions, and I'm going to walk through it and see where I end up on the other side. Now, with some of these actions that I've been taking lately, like, again, really proud of myself. These were things that were really scary. One of those opportunities, I had to like pitch myself basically cold. Asked this person if they had some time to talk. They then reached out to me, and I wasn't ready for it. And I felt like I fumbled through it. But basically on the other side of the phone call was, hey man, let me get back to you on that. And so, like, I'm really proud of myself for taking those actions. It's just now I'm on the other side of those actions, right? Like, oftentimes I see in myself, it's like my actions are conditional, right? Like, I'm going to take this action, and then I expect a result on the other side of it almost immediately, like, or I want a result almost immediately, right? I take these actions, right? So I took these actions, I took a couple actions, and again, proud of myself for doing that. I can definitely pat myself on the back for that. But now I'm in this spot of, okay, just wait. There's no answers yet. I go through that whole, like, am I doing enough? Have I done enough? And like, the honest answer to that is yes. Like, I have done enough within these actions. These were actions that I wanted to take. I was afraid. I took them. There's nothing more that needs to be done. And then at this point in time, it's out of my control. And I'm so uncomfortable in the weight. I'm just so uncomfortable within the weight. The weight, WEIGHT, of the weight, WAIT, the weight of the weight. And it's got me feeling like really uncomfortable. I don't like being this uncomfortable. I don't do well when I'm this uncomfortable. Now, I'm sober today. Thank God. I'm sober for that, right? The thoughts have been there. The urges have been there. I have not felt the need to pick those things up. Maybe I've toyed with them in my mind a little longer than I'd like. However, like, I haven't actually picked those things up. I haven't taken them past the thoughts. And that's something that I was talking to the clients about today in group, was like, hey, thoughts are thoughts. Thoughts are going to come. Thoughts are going to go, right? I don't have to sentence myself for having these thoughts. Having the thoughts is part of the human condition, right? I'm always going to have thoughts. Sometimes I can't really control my thoughts. What I can control is the action that I place behind those thoughts, right? Did that thought come up? And Alex, did you just leave that alone as a thought? Yeah. Did you put any action behind it? No, I did not. Did you think it through? Yep, I did. And you still didn't take the action? I did not take the action. Okay. Right? But I get into this spot of like shaming or sentencing myself for even having the thought alone, right? I'm punishing myself for something that's kind of out of my control again, right? Like, I have the choice to whether I jump in the boat with those thoughts or not. Like, do I dwell on those thoughts? Do I play into those thoughts. But again, even if that does happen, I don't live there for very long and I don't put action behind it. And that's kind of how like the last year is gone, is like I don't put I don't put actions behind those thoughts. And there, don't get me wrong, man, like there's some days where I want to escape reality so bad. That in my mind tells me it would just be easier to go back to acting out than it would be to stay in where I am and to work through whatever it is that's going on. Now, again, with time in the program, I know full well that these things are not really the things that I want to be doing. And that, I don't have to put action. And that I've put action behind these things. And I know where these things lead me, right? Playing that tape through can be so crucial for us. Thinking about those times where I just so full of shame and guilt because of what I had just done. And like today, I don't carry that shame and guilt that I did when I was like fully on acting out. There's nothing like being in a meeting, planning on acting out after you leave that meeting, but not sharing it, right? I didn't share my intentions, and that's a big key for me today that I see, is that rigorous honesty piece. Like maybe, I could play this game of like, oh, maybe that would have helped. I know that I can do that now moving forward, and I have done that moving forward. And then like there's that idea of like, there were times where I held myself back from acting out. And even with those times, right? So I look back at those times now and I go, man, I just should have gone through with it. I should have just gone through with it, and I can't live there either, right? Like I can't live there. So again, yeah, I'm really, struggling with the accomplishment of getting 1 year clean and sober. Because every time I preface that, I always follow it up with, oh, well, it took me 4 years to get here. And, what do I tell other people? Like, I tell other people all the time, like, I don't care if you're a day sober or 5 years sober, or 6 months sober. Like, the fact of the matter is that you're sober today. And, like, that's what's important. When I talk to people on the phone, like, hey, did you pick up today? Did you use? Did you opt out today? If the answer is no, then that's a win, right? And even if the answer is yes, I can meet them with grace and compassion and empathy. Hey guys, I just want to take a minute to share something deeply personal and transformative in my journey of recovery. I've been where you might be right now, struggling with the weight of addiction and feeling lost. But there's a place that offered me a new beginning, a place I truly believe in. It's called Begin Again Institute. At Begin Again, they understand the deep-rooted trauma behind addiction. Their 14-day intensive program for men tackles the neurobiological aspects of addiction head-on. It's not just about breaking a habit. It's about understanding and healing the underlying trauma that formed it in the first place. And for those who have been impacted by betrayal, Begin Again extends care to partners of addicts too. Their partner support program is offered at no additional cost to the family and runs alongside the men's intensive. This program helps participants gain an understanding of the trauma they've experienced and sets them on their own path to healing. If you or someone you love are grappling with sexual addiction, pornography addiction, or intimacy issues, Begin Again Institute can be that pivotal step towards recovery and a new lease on life. Remember, you can't go back and change the past, but it's never too late to begin again. To learn more about their life-changing program, visit beginagaininstitute.com or call 720-776-9076 to reserve your spot in the next 2-week intensive. I promise, it'll be the best call that you ever make for yourself. Stay strong, keep fighting, and keep tuning in to No Lions Here for more conversations about recovery, resilience, and hope. However, like I have such a hard time of turning that on to myself. Turning myself into that and patting myself on the back and saying, man, Alex, that was really hard work. And I don't know if I'm afraid that I won't be able to maintain that too. I'm definitely afraid of that. I'm definitely afraid that I'm not going to be able to maintain my sobriety, And by no means am I getting complacent, right? I'm still doing the work, right? Digging into step work, service, right? Been sponsoring some people. Work's going well. And so, like, I don't really know. Some Okay, and it just picked back up. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty. I disconnected from the internet there, but now I'm back. So yeah, just like the fear, man, like the fear of, am I going to be able to maintain the sobriety, right? Now that I've gotten a little bit under my belt, now that I've gotten that reprieve, and don't get me wrong, like it feels really good, right? It's so much easier to turn down the triggers now that I'm sober or that I've been sober, man. It's so much easier, right? One of the hardest things to do is, to have a little bit of time, a week's time, and have these urges pop back up. And I'm only a week removed from the behavior. So I'm like, you know what? I'm only a week removed. I might as well just do it anyway. Who cares, right? Tomorrow I'll start a new day. So it's definitely easier. And, again, it's more manager, right? I'm very reluctant to say that things ever get easy for us. I think the way that we show up and the way that we manage things, that's kind of where you find the ease. But again, it's never really easy, but I can keep it simple. I can keep it simple. And that's really what I've been trying to do in my program over the last year, is just like keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it spiritual. Continue to stay connected and invest in the areas that I can invest in, the willingness, the connection, the honesty, the spirituality. But, even in those places, right, I still struggle sometimes. And I don't know, I feel like as I'm talking right now on this, right, and I don't know if it's my reluctancy to do this episode, it's like I feel like I'm kind of coming down on myself a little bit, and I don't want to do that to myself. I don't want to treat myself like this anymore. I want to uplift myself, man. I am proud of myself for the things that I'm doing. I know that intellectually. I just don't know if I really feel that, though. Like, do I really feel the pride, or is it well, this is how you're supposed to be doing it? That idea of like, well, Alex, you're in recovery, so you are supposed to be, your obligation here, you are supposed to be sober. And I know just as well as anybody else that just because I'm in recovery, or just because somebody's in recovery, does not necessarily equal sobriety, because we get into recovery, especially S recovery, where we really got to overturn all the stones, and like we really got to look at things. So you're really stirring things up, and I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the people that it's brought into my lives, and the things that I've gotten to do and to experience, and the things that I get to continuously experience in my life and in my program today. It does feel good, right? I am very grateful. I can go to bed every night knowing that, like, hey, I did the best that I could today. And that is like, I can find a lot of gratitude in that. And, I can find gratitude in that, like, hey, I am sober today. And I have had a good length of sobriety at this point in time. And again, something that I thought that I'd never have before. And even in the midst of turmoil, right? Getting into a new relationship, navigating that, navigating the distance, navigating those uncomfortable conversations. Where I have to disclose parts of my past to this person, and then not knowing if they're going to accept me or not. Talking about the hard things, right? The financial insecurities, and then navigating the conversations around like, hey, let's live together. Let's move in together. Let's continue to build together. And that is something that, is scary, the change of all of that. And so like, I get why I'm so uncomfortable right now, right? Like, my fears in the move are, moving away from my network, right? My people are all here. Now I'll only be an hour away, so that's not, but still, but in that, I romanticize how much I actually see those people, right? Like, it's not like every night of the week I'm booked with fellowship with friends, right? It's not every week. Sometimes it's not every 2 weeks, not every 3 weeks. Maybe it's once a month, right? And those are still things that I can still do. And I can still take a part of. Just because I'm moving, a little over an hour away doesn't mean that I can't partake in things anymore, because I can, or that the network will change, because I believe that there's work to be done no matter where I live, whether that be working in the recovery industry, or maybe that's, hey, I'm going to bring an S meeting to town or city that I now live in, because that's something that's been floated and talked about. And so it's like, no matter what, like, there is work to be done no matter where I go. Part of I was talking to the partner recently and telling her like, hey, on some of these opportunities that I'm looking into, right, as far as the career goes, I want to make sure that these things are a good fit, right? I don't want to just jump, or even in the conversation around like moving in together is like, I don't want to take this lightly. So I want to make sure I'm rigorous in this. I want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence, that I'm thorough with the planning, with the thoughts, with the actions. However, at the same time, like, I can hide behind those. I can use this. Well, I want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence as a way of dragging my feet out of fear. Even if the the ideal scenario was presented to me, the ideal opportunity was presented to me, that would say, hey, man, everything that you're doing and everything that you've done up until this point is leading you in this direction, which I believe that it is. I believe that just the way that the relationship's gone, and it's leading me, right. I see where the path is going, right, and I can see that there's a path there. However, like, I'm still afraid to walk down that path, right? So even if the perfect opportunity was put at my feet today, right, if I got that phone call today that said, hey, Alex, I'm willing to give you everything that you want, I still would be scared to death to take that opportunity. Flat out, I would still be afraid. No doubt in my mind, I'd still be afraid of that. And so, how do we drop the rock on the fear? How do I just put that fear down? I don't really have a solid, concrete answer to that. If I did, I'd bottle it up and sell it. It'd be for sale in the merch section of this podcast. Which, by the way, I would love to do some merch, some t-shirts, some things like that. If there's any one of my listeners that has any experience in that, please, like, reach out to me, because I'd love to venture into that, because I do believe that, like, doing the podcast is going to be a part of my future. And one of the ways that I reach out and that I connect with people and be of service to the community is by continuing to do the podcast. I'd just like to, selfishly, I'd like to make more money from doing the podcast. Honestly, if I'm being completely dead honest, right, I would like to make more money in doing the podcast. So again, if there's anybody out there that has any history with doing any merch, please reach out. I got some ideas and I need some help exploring those ideas. And so, part of this too is like the fantasy of that these opportunities will come to me, right? And that I don't have to do any work to, like, achieve these things. Now, if I look at it, right, the things that I've achieved, right, the podcast, my recovery, my sobriety, my job, those are things that I've had to work at. They weren't just given to me. These things weren't given to me. I had help along the way with some of this stuff, especially the podcast, man. I've had so much help. Shout out to Kyle, man. Shout out to you, man. I hope you're listening. We've kind of fallen off a little bit, and I feel really bad about that. And he's helped me out in a lot of ways. So, I've definitely had the help. However, at the end of the day, like, I've done this kind of, not, I don't want to say on my own, but like, I feel like I'm so alone in some of this. And that, like, back to that idea of, like, I want somebody else to make these decisions for me. Like, I want somebody else to reach out to me and say, hey, man, we heard about you. We think that you'd be a really good fit. Here's what we've got going on, right? Instead of me being the one that's doing it. Now, it means more. I'm going to not take it for granted if I do these things, right? And that's fantasy, right? That's fantasy. Man, I can definitely tell just in sitting here talking, I can feel the weight of what I'm carrying. I can hear it in my voice. I can hear it in my views and my perspectives today, here that I'm talking to you guys. And I hope that I can find some grace for myself in this. I mean, I don't know if it's because I didn't feel prepared to do this. Again, I was kind of avoiding this topic coming on here today. So, okay. So if there's something that I feel like I'm avoiding, what do I need to do? I need to move through that. I need to take some actions and I need to move through it. And that's what I'm doing. Now, again, on the other side of that is, is that going to equal relief? And I don't know. And it's okay if it doesn't. Because, I need to continue. These are things that I got to continue to work at and continue to strive and continue to push. it's just I can't always see the way, right? Again, that wait period, man. The weight of the wait. I'm very uncomfortable in it, man. I'm very, because I want things now, right? Again, that conditional, okay, I took these actions. Okay, come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Right? I was so afraid to take the actions. I should almost now get rewarded for taking these actions. I'm laughing because it doesn't work like that. And as I hear myself say it out loud, like I know that. I know that. It's just so hard to feel it though. It's so hard to feel it. It's so hard to move it down from what I'm thinking to what I'm feeling, you know? And I have to be careful because in these times, the thoughts of you are not good enough, you are not enough comes into play. You need to be doing more. There's more that you could be doing right now. And pretty soon, right, if these things go unchecked, those voices will get louder and louder in my head. And, you know, those voices are not good for my sobriety. You know, clearly there's some stuff going on inside of me, and there's some needs that, you know, are not necessarily being met. And that's something that I have to reflect on, you know, and figure out how do I meet those needs, right? How do I comfort myself in these uncomfortable times of wait? Because that's kind of the season that I'm in right now is wait, man. It's hurry up and wait. You know, and we see that so much in recovery. You know, I see that in the clients that I interact with on a daily basis, right? They're taking these actions. They're in rehab, you know, whether this is their first time in rehab or their 50th time in rehab. The fact of the matter is they took an action to come back. Now, just because we take that action doesn't mean that things on the other side are just going to be sunshine and rainbows. Again, I actually didn't realize how gloomy I kind of am around this topic right now until I sat down and started recording. I mean, I guess I could feel it even before I recorded because I almost forgot that I needed to record today. And there's a part of me that didn't want to record today. Right. But I got to show up. I got to suit up. I got to show up. I got to take the actions. You know, I've made a commitment to this platform that, you know, I'm going to put out an episode, you know, every 2 weeks. Well, tomorrow's time for a new episode. Right. And I went to record over the weekend and, you know, not here in the studio at work, and a piece of equipment failed on me. And so I couldn't record. Right. And I was really disappointed in that because I was set. I was like, awesome, I'm going to set this time away. Right. I was down with the girlfriend's house. I asked her, I said, hey, I need an empty house to do this. She said, hey, no problem. I'll take the daughter and we'll go do something for an hour so that you can get this done, because I know you want to get this done. And, you know, this piece of equipment failed on me. You know, thank God, I'm so grateful that I have this studio that I can come in. All I got to do is bring in my computer and everything else is here, and I just plug in and I go. Right. So I knew that, okay, I will have a time, but man, we're really, really, really cutting it close. And now, you know, and just, I don't know, frustrations there too, you know, frustrations definitely there. Financial insecurities, right? Like I'm struggling to see a time, and it's not up to me, right? I got to remind myself of this, right? It's not up to me to see how this all plays out. Right? Like, again, back to that idea that, like, I got to have all these answers. Well, I don't have to all know all these answers. I don't know is an answer. But, like, I've really been struggling to see a time or a career or a place to where I'm not feeling that financial insecurity. I'm struggling to see what I can do, what job I can take that is going to allow me some kind of financial freedom. I don't need freedom all the way, right? I don't need to make $1 billion or even $1 million, right? But I'd like to do something to where I'm a little bit more comfortable than I am. And I'm struggling to see how that's ever going to play out, right? And that's one of my problems, again, is like I put it all on me. I think that I have to have this all figured out, right? I totally take God out of the equation. And also, too, if I look at it, right, like, I can find gratitude that, like, man, my needs are met today, right? I'm able to take care of the things that I need to take care of, and able to still kind of do some of the things that I want to do, you know, which is really nice. And I take it for granted, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely, you know, I'm definitely in it right now. Definitely, you know, life doesn't look the way that I want it to look today. And you know, and that's okay. That's okay. It's going to look like this sometimes. It's going to look like this a lot of the times. It's okay. It's all right. I'm going to keep coming back. I'm going to keep recording. I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep, making the phone calls. I'm going to keep taking the phone calls. I'm going to continue to work with other people who are suffering, other people who are trying to recover, right? I'm going to continue to pray. I guess my enthusiasm within my own life, right? Because there's also, for me, there's a fear within the contentness that life is right now. Because overall, like, life is not bad right now. Life's pretty good, actually. Life is really good right now. I'm in a loving, beautiful, committed relationship. Work's going well. I'm getting a lot of, I'm doing a lot of service work. I finally got guys that I sponsor now, which is cool, right? It's one of those things too. It's kind of funny, like, be careful with what you ask for because you may actually get it, right? I used to think that because nobody asked me to be their sponsor, I had nothing that anybody wanted, right? Because typically that's how you go about finding a sponsor, right? By finding somebody that has something that you want. And so here I am going, well, I guess nobody wants what I got. So what I got, it must not be shit, which is a lie in itself. I know that. But it's a big responsibility. Even if I don't have a lot of sponsees, but I got, I got a few, I got a few. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot, man, because now I'm dealing with those phone calls, and it's good stuff, right? Though it is good stuff. It is. Service work is, I got to walk a guy through his first step the other night, and like, man, that felt so good, right? I got to work with a guy yesterday on his 4-step stuff, man, and it was really good, right? He shared things with me that he's never shared with anybody in his entire life, right? And so, like, I'm honored to be a part of that with somebody, and that this person trusts me enough to share these things share everything about themselves with me. There it is. I got it. Yeah, like that all feels really good. It just comes down to, like, again, I'm fearful within the contentness, right? Because oftentimes I don't know how to act, right? We were doing the circles in group today, and someone threw in the middle circle boredom, and I was kind of like, well, I want to challenge the boredom a little bit here, right? Like, this is are we confusing boredom with being content, right? Because throughout my life, I'm so used to the chaos. There's always been so much chaos in my life. Addiction is chaos. I'm familiar in the chaos. I don't necessarily like chaos. However, I'm familiar in it. I know how to act. It justifies my behaviors. I can blame other people. So now that, like, I don't have that chaos, right? I'm not hiding things. I'm not lying about things. I don't have to cover my tracks. My phone anybody can look through my phone. It doesn't matter. I don't care, but can I get bored in that? Because I'm so content. So I kind of like to push back on boredom sometimes in these senses, because again, I think that we can confuse being content for being bored, because being content means my life is not the unmanageable chaos that I've been operating in for the majority of my life. And so I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that I'm not operating out of that chaotic system anymore today, right? I can create my own chaos. I totally can. And I do it in other ways other than, acting out or using. Getting tattoos. That's a way that I like to bring chaos into my life. Spending money that I shouldn't necessarily spend. That's a way to kind of bring some of that chaos into my life. And I see it, right? I see it. So yeah, just that fear of, that I didn't do enough soon enough. I think that that's what lies between me and feeling really proud of myself for hitting that milestone of, at this point in time, 13 months sober, clean and sober from my inner circle activities. 13 months. 13 months. That's a good chunk of time. And I think too, which I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, right? The fear of losing that sobriety with one wrong mistake, one wrong decision. And, it's not that the knowledge that I've gained in the last 13 months, I won't lose that, right? I will lose the day count. And, it would definitely be uncomfortable, because my go-to is simply not just porn. And even that's hurtful in its own right within the relationship. I don't even want to bring that behavior into this, but knowing that that's not necessarily really my go-to. I think that that's what is scary, is that, like, it's not just looking up porn. And again, porn brings its own betrayal within a relationship. It 100% does. I'm a firm believer in that. However, I know my patterns. I know me. And I know that if I'm going to go all in, I'm going to go all in. But again, I'm not taking any actions around these things. I'm simply, I think, just voicing kind of the fears that I have inside that I didn't necessarily know were there. We are only aware to a certain point until we bump up against these different experiences that bring up a new awareness within us, right? When I woke up this morning, that's the most aware that I can be, or most aware that I've been. Well, as my day goes on, I've had these experiences that have opened up my awareness. So now I'm maybe seeing things from a different light. But again, that idea of, because again, this is an old tape in my head, right? This is not a new tape. This is an old tape. The tape that says you're not doing enough. The tape is, man, you've been in recovery for 4 years and you've only just now gotten, right? As I say that, those words, you've only got a year of sobriety from acting out behaviors, right? And you know what? I'm going to push back on that tape right now and say I'm doing enough, and that I'm really proud of myself for these last 13 months. I'm really proud of myself because there's been plenty of times where I wanted to go act out and I didn't. And I got to realize that just because I'm in recovery, it's not my obligation necessarily to stay sober. It's my choice to stay sober, because I know what staying sober does for me and my lifestyle and what I'm trying to do with my life and where I'm trying to take my life. So I'm going to focus on, the gratitude around this. I'm going to focus on the gratitude around this, and that, I'm so grateful because I can still remember those times of not being able to string it together. To whereas today I know that I'm kind of free. I get those reprieves, man. I don't have to hide anything. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful that I get to come on here and just kind of let it go, let it all out. And I hope that in doing this helps me put down the rock a little bit with this stuff. Maybe it will to some extent, right? But there's still probably some more work that I need to be doing. And I'll continue to look at that work, and I'm open to doing it. Last night I was laying in bed. I feel this, I got this sense of sadness over me last night. I didn't really know what it was. It was sadness. Maybe it was gratitude. I had maybe a mix of both. I don't know, but I was so afraid of holding on to that. I knew that I needed to cry, and I had such a hard time holding on to that. I just wanted to cry, but I had such a hard time holding on to that. But I wasn't afraid to hold on to it, right? I really had to focus and dig deep down inside to try to find that again. And then as soon as it hit me, like trying to hold on to it instead of run from it. And I just welcomed it, man. And I just laid in bed with my hands on my chest, and I just let it come, and I just cried. And it felt really good. It felt really good on the other side of that. So, you know what? I'm willing to take a look at these things. No matter how hard they are, I'm willing to take a look at them. And I'm grateful for that willingness. That even today, I'm blessed with some desperation, some willingness to look at the uncomfortable. And I think that speaks volumes for who I am and what I'm trying to do. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Still got some spots open for the coaching that I'm trying to do. So if you're interested in having me as your recovery coach, definitely reach out. nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, that's nolionshere@gmail.com. Shoot me an email, put coaching in the title box. I am only looking for male clients right now. I don't want to take on any female clients. That's kind of a boundary that I've kind of set for myself. And I want to stick to that. So again, if you're interested, I'd love to talk more. And as always, if there's any topics that you want to hear, or if you want to connect, please feel free to reach out. nolionshere@gmail.com. Again, that's nolionshere@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for joining me on my journey. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. As always, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you're worth it. I'll see you guys next time.